When I was a kid, one of my very favourite dishes was shepherd's pie, and we normally had it either Sunday night, because we always had a roast dinner for Sunday lunch, and it was always lamb. Remember, I'm a Kiwi. Mum always made shepherd's pie on either Sunday night or Monday night, using the leftover lamb and the leftover veggies, which is exactly what she did. But as we got older, we ate more of the veggies and more of the lamb, so she used to make it using some lamb mince. And this is what I'm going to do today. Actually, I am going to digress slightly. I put it onto one of my restaurants, shepherd's pie now, Tolano I think it was. And I put it on in the winter because I thought it was a good winter dish, you know, covered in lovely creamy mash and cheese and all those good things. Brussels sprouts on the side, or cabbage. Beautiful. Anyway, in summer I took it off. I nearly had pickets outside the place because they loved the shepherd's pie. But I better do some work. And I'm just going to show you a couple of things because I don't think I've shown you this before. Just chopping. Right, so we've got an onion which we've peeled and I want to dice it, so I'll show you how to do it. So you just cut it that way with a nice sharp knife, and then through the centre, 3 or 4 slices there, and then, see, very simple. We get nicely chopped onion. Now, carrot, let's just show you with that too, because I want some carrots for this, because I always do a good veggie base with my shepherd's pie. You could put swedes and you could put parsnips and you could do anything you like. So that's how we do that. So that's pretty simple too. You're not trying to get that, you know, like when you see commercial kitchens, they have it so fine it's not funny. You want a little bit of texture to it, so don't cut it too small. And if you're not sure with your knife skills, just do one piece of carrot at a time. Don't do 43 on top of each other. But you can see how simple it is. There's nothing difficult about that. And any other veggies you like. I like the idea of plenty of veggies in this. Just adds lots of body. Gets you 5 veggies a day. Particularly for the kids, because they'll love shepherd's pie. Right, so we just cut that in strips like that. The outer stalks of the celery, I always peel it. Because I find, just with a veggie peel, it's no big deal. But I always find it a bit, how's your father? Don't I? Now, what does how's your father mean? I always find it a bit tough. The other thing that I want to show you is that I've got my leftover. This is the old-fashioned mincer like Mum used to have. It really is. It's no different. And so I've got my leftover lamb because I had some roast lamb yesterday, and I'm just going to mince that because I'm going to throw that in too because I'm certainly not going to waste anything. You know we're about not wasting. My mother used to have a wooden thing that she used to press the lamb down with. I didn't get it with this one. So just mince it reasonably coarsely. And as I said to you, you know, there's not enough left over for just to do the minced lamb like we used to when we were kids. I suppose in the days we were talking about mutton, really, weren't we? I loved mutton. I don't know why we don't see mutton anymore. I'm going to ask somebody about that. I'll come back to that because I need to move over and start thinking about my veggies because, as you can see, that's smoking away. The other thing that I didn't mention, which is completely optional, is I've got a couple of full rashers of bacon that I've also diced. But as I said, really is optional. But you can see what I mean when I'm saying I'm putting a really decent amount of veggies in. One, veggies are cheaper than meat for a start, which is a good idea. And the second thing, they just add wonderful flavour. And we will turn that down a bit because I don't want to brown. I don't mind them picking up a little bit of colour, but basically I just want them tender. Start the cooking process. And the reason you do that, if you start the cooking process like that, it does end up with extra flavour rather than just throwing them in and boiling them. Also a nice plump clove of garlic and 2 or 3 bay leaves. And I will go back to finishing off my lamb. It's funny, these minces, they haven't changed in 100 years. It's exactly the same as my mother's one. It really is. It just looks exactly the same. Now, that goes in there. I've got 750 grams of lamb mince. Of course you can use beef mince, but then it becomes a cottage pie. What I've also got here are some leftover roast veggies, sweet potato, pumpkin, and some potatoes. Chop those up. You don't need to chop the sweet potato and the pumpkin up because, as we know, what will happen with that is it actually will melt into it. But these have still got the skins on, so we toss that in there as well. With this meat, you don't have to do it now, but as you're doing it, you need to mash it a bit. You can use a potato masher if you like, but you don't want big lumps of it. So what happens is at the end of it, you've cooked everything and you've got big lumps of meat, which will be raw inside. So as I said, just keep on mashing it as you're sealing it. Now I know that I say on the show that you know, it's fast food and all that. Well, this doesn't take much, because what happens is you make it the day before, or you make it during the day while you're sitting there doing something else, because once you put it on to cook, it cooks itself. And then we start adding some liquid, half a cup of white wine, any white will do. I just happen to have this. A can of tomato puree. Now that is tomato puree, please, not tomato paste. Tomato puree, some packet beef stock, about half a cup of that. So you've got half a cup of wine, half a cup of packet beef stock, a can of tomato puree. And we're also going to throw in, just to give it a bit of sweetness, not too much, a little bit of bought tomato chutney, and obviously seasonings. Salt and pepper, not too much salt, because you can add more later, and you never know with your beef stock. You know, when you buy the packet beef stocks, which are very good these days, sometimes they can be a bit salty than others. I try to buy salt reduced. And I'm just going to bring that to the boil, and what I'm going to do is then I'm going to turn it down to a simmer, and I'm going to cook it, adding more liquid if need be. Now, you find if that it's a bit pale, you need more tomato puree. And if before it is fragrant, you know, you can smell it through your kitchen when it's ready. What does Lucio, the wonderful Italian restaurateur, say about his bolognese sauce? I'm not making bolognese sauce, but if I was, he said, you cook to the smell. Well, that's what you do with this. You can smell it when it's through the kitchen, and it's wonderful and fragrant. But too pale, add tomato puree. Too dry, add some more stock. You don't need any more wine. And I would cook it for about 3/4 an hour to an hour until it's tender, full of flavour, all the good things. Then, my friends, we'll finish it off. Right, my mother will be proud of me. This shepherd's pie mix is looking beautiful. Now comes the taste test. See what it's like. Oh, that's good. Beautiful flavours. Doesn't need any seasoning, doesn't need anything. Let's just get a nice dish, any size dish will do. What I'm doing with this is I'm making one for you to show that you know, how you do one. But I always do extra, because you can go into the freezer in a freezing container very happily. But just freeze it in 1s or 2s, so that when you pull it out, you know, you can make exactly what you need. So I've got my mince, or my shepherd's pie mix it is. It did start off as sort of mince, and some creamy mash. When I say creamy, lots of cream, butter, all those good things. Now, it's a good idea when you use mash, and it's the same with when you make a fish. Actually, I must make a fish pie for you. Forgotten about that. That is non-molest. Anyway, when you make it, you don't want everything hot when you put it together, because otherwise it melts. You know, like the mash melts, etc., etc. And what we then add, some grated tasty, decent amount of it. Now, I am told, and I completely ignore this, that if you make cottage pie, which now, somebody said to me the other day, now what's the difference between a cottage and a shepherd's pie? Shepherds, sheep, cottage, beef. That's what the difference is. A little bit of parmesan. This is optional, the parmesan. I just think it adds a bit of flavour. The tasting melts, and the parmesan just adds that bit of flavour. And straight into the oven, about 180 degrees, not too high up, because I want it to heat up and be bubbling, and, you know, and as I said, it doesn't matter if it goes over the edges a bit. Now, what I'm serving it with, because I love them, I'm serving with some Brussels sprouts. Lots of boiling water, lots. Big pot of boiling water, well salted. All right, now wine to go with it. Now, what I've got here is Voyager's Estate. Now, this is from Margaret River, if I remember rightly. It's called Girt by Sea. And it's a Cabernet Merlot, got a bit of age, 212. Why would you name a wine after that ridiculous line from the National Anthem? I don't mind the National Anthem, but Girt by Sea always gets me going. Anyway, beautiful wine from Voyager. Cabernet Merlot, perfect. Enjoy.